All right, go ahead. Introduce yourself, sir.
How you guys doing? I'm Ant. I play collegiate Valorant for Kaiser University. Um, it's like a low underground school, flying under the radar for right now, but don't worry, next couple months we'll be top 15 BLR.
Yes, sir.
Something like.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate it, man. I really appreciate it. So I wanted to talk to you today about your competitiveness in Valorant and how you guys take practice serious and everything. I think one of the biggest things that I think people neglect in esports, especially like I see in Valorant now, is the quality of practice. Especially with us playing collegiate Valorant, a lot of people do it for fun or is just something to do. So you as a competitor that played on break what you played on. What was the team that you played on again?
Played on Hitman. I played on High Caliber before it was Heavy Triggers. I played on some other free agent rosters with no names on it, but I've been around. I know like how some practices should be run.
Mm-hmm.
I've dealt with good coaches, some mediocre coaches, so I kind of know what to expect. But to answer your question, I think the first thing you need to do is understand the environment you're in and what your team is expecting from that program, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a collegiate team with people that want to win, obviously. Like nobody really likes to lose, right?
Mm-hmm.
It depends if you're a club or if you're a team. So you need to sit down with your teammates and you have to figure out, okay, well, are we here to have fun? Are we here to, put some time in, let's practice? It's an actual sport. People try to, it's like a kind of a big meme that esports is considered a sport.
Mm-hmm.
But in my eyes, it really is, because there's a lot of things you can translate over from like normal sports. Like for example, I played football and I did weightlifting in high school, so I know like all about the mentalities you're supposed to have when you're bringing into practice. It's different.
That's not to cut you off, but that's one thing that my strength coach always says. He was just like he's a big believer in you when you practice hard, you make the game so much easier. That's one thing. That's the thing I've noticed what separate good players from the great players, and then the great players from like the phenomenal players, is because of their work ethic, what they do at practice. I think that's why you have Hall of Famers in sports, is because they took practice just as serious as the game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You don't see. I mean, you know what I think it is? It's also like a cultural thing.
Could
Because
be.
most teams, no, it is because even players from the NBA, like Kobe, let's say Michael Jordan, like those guys, they on and off the court, it's always about basketball. So I think you really have to want it. Not everybody's on the same page. So you really have to figure out like, okay, is my team gonna want to play for fun? Do we want to compete in tournaments? Like, how are we gonna compete in officials if we're just here to have fun? Just to just to horse around.
And go back to your point where you were saying that you have to know if this is a club team or is this actually like a team. So I was going to ask you, could you give us like what's the difference between the two?
So before I came to Kaiser, to KU, I played for a different university. That university wasn't funded under athletics, right? So that's like a different beast in itself. But long story short, when you're under athletics, you get paid scholarship money, just like any other sport does.
Okay.
So at that point, it's like, okay, well, now we're no longer a club. We're no longer for fun, right? Because you're getting paid money for college, so you can do what you're good at and play the game, right? So some people just like, oh, still video games, still for fun. Oh, I'm not gonna flip the switch in my head to want to put in that much effort.
So do you think with, let's say for instance, let's say people who don't look at like competitiveness, like competitive games, they don't like to take it serious. Do you think it's like? Do you think people are like? I was gonna ask. Do you think people are born with like that competitive drive to want to be the best at everything they do, or is it something that's taught or you have to learn?
No way. It's definitely genetic. Even humans themselves you're born that way. That's why natural selection is the way it is, right? Because if you're not better than the guy next to you, how are you supposed to move on? you're gonna lose territory, you're gonna lose potential mates, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Even like, it's very what's the word I'm looking for? It's very primal to want to win.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because I know my dad for what just to bring him up, he is a definition of someone that it don't matter what it is, he's refuses to lose. That's how he is. Like even when we in the gym together with I train back at home, he's constantly competing against me and my brother the entire time in the weight room. I'm just like, me, I'm just looking at my dad like, man, why my dad? This man is like 52, still trying to outlive me and my brother, and I'm just like, but that's just his nature. Is something that I feel like that's just instilled in him because he's always been like that. Him, his brothers, his sisters, every single one of them are competitors. It don't matter what it is in their job or with games, anything. They're all competitors. Every single one of them. And it's just crazy. It's crazy, and that's why I look at it and I'll be like, man, maybe because me and my brother, we've always been competitors, even before we even played football and basketball, before we even got hands on it. We competed in everything that we did. It didn't matter what it was. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. But also, do you think some people competitive drive depends on whatever it is that they're competing in? Could like dictate their like competitive nature in a sense, like whether
how much they're trying.
Yeah. Like for instance, like I know some people take school serious; they will want to be number one in their class. But someone like me, I don't care. Like you can be number one in your class, I don't care. I'm not finna go try hard like that, So So do you think do you think like that kind of like dictates?
Absolutely. I mean, you see all the time. Some kids want to do great in school. They're constantly studying. They want to be number one in the class. But like that's their own goal, right? Like we're talking about Valorant. We're talking about if you're in a collegiate setting and you get paid especially to go to collegiate, and you're not giving your best effort, why are you taking someone else's spot?
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can play on a free agent roster. You can play for a fun team. You don't have to be on that roster.
So yeah, and I think because we scrim schools that are getting paid on, they are on scholarship, and they just look, not the best, like how you would think a team that's on scholarship would look like. So it's just like, are these schools just trying to use this as a way to get more students in? You think to just up their numbers, or do you think some of these schools actually take it serious to like make their school competitive? Like Fisher or Blinn or Winthrop, those schools that we always see at the top. Like I'm just surprised that some of these schools like Auburn or Alabama or some of these big schools are not like funding esports and competing in other avenues other than just football and basketball and your typical sports.
Well, that's because they don't have to, right? Those big schools like Auburn, Alabama, UCLA, all those big D1 schools that are known for their sports. Why would they take a risk on esports when they already have like probably the best programs in the nation for sports anyway?
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
So like Blinn, Fisher, Texas A&M, those guys, those esports schools, they're phenomenal at what they do because they invest so much money into esports.
Yeah.
So what they're basically trying to do is monopolize every good collegiate player in the pool right now, so that they can make a name for themselves, right? Because before, like, let's say like we go back like 5-6 years, we don't know what any of those schools are.
Yeah.
But I'm sure like through word of mouth and through the news, who Alabama, Auburn, who all those big schools are.
Yeah.
So they kind of have to invest. Those smaller schools, especially that don't have like a D1 or any D1 teams at all for sports, they have to invest into esports because they're so small already.
So do you think like the bigger schools, like let's say like Florida, University of Florida, Florida State, or Auburn, Alabama, if you think those schools were to like invest just as much as they do into, let's say like football or basketball or anything like that, do you think that they could take some of those collegiate players from like Fisher and Blinn and all them to come to their school?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're in those bigger schools are in better areas also.
Mm-hmm.
like
True.
geographically, right? Because Florida is the Sunshine State. Everyone wants to be at the beach. Florida is like on everyone's radar. But
Yeah.
when you go to Blinn, I don't know. You're probably in like the middle of nowhere. I don't know. I haven't done my research on Blinn, but that's what I'm assuming. Because most schools, no, seriously, like when I was before I went to Kaiser, I was getting offers from schools like full ride offers from schools that I didn't even know existed in the middle of nowhere. Like
Mm-hmm.
one in Baltimore next to Compton. Like how the hell? Like
Next
you
to
know, like
Compton.
next to Compton. I'm like, okay, bro, I'm not going there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Most
yeah, man.
definitely. So just reverting back to like practice and everything. So what do you do typically? How does your practice look typically when, like, just say for instance, like preparing for the week of practice, or you have a game this Saturday, so you have to prepare. What does that look like for you?
So in a perfect world, right? Because we're still students to like first we're students, then we're athletes in a
Mm-hmm.
way. Athletes take that lightly, but we
Typically.
do take it lightly. So I mean, we're supposed to do school first, and sometimes it gets in the way.
Yeah.
Um, but normally we'd like to do VOD review. We have 1 hour
Mm-hmm.
of theory every day,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what. Then usually we have 2 to 3 scrims for let's say like that's a Monday, and then we break it down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 1 hour of theory, and then scrim,
Mm-hmm.
and then the following day we'll try and do a VOD review on that day with some
Okay.
more theory. So like
Okay.
one day will be a bulk of like the actual practice of
Mm-hmm.
us going against different teams. The next day will be okay. Let's break down what we did yesterday and see if we can fine tune it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just like a rinse and repeat throughout the week.
Okay, so for those that don't know, could you tell us what does like the theory, like what you mean by theory?
So theory, it's like, for example, in a term that everyone understand, like for football, in American football, you have different positions, and everyone needs to know what they're doing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like for example, our defense for Valorant, right? For collegiate Valorant, let's say like you take like a 4-3 or a 2-3 defense or something similar to that. And what we do is we break it down for our players, and we explain like what you're supposed to be doing, what your job is for every position in Valorant.
Okay, so it's almost like you're coming up with strats in a sense, like of
It's a strategy.
strategy.
Like,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so like, how long should you practice? Should practice be, especially with, I guess, like collegiate players?
Not long, because you guys want to get through the day, or
Mm-hmm.
you guys want to get through that practice so you can focus on your schoolwork as well. But you also don't want to be lash on your practice time either. So you want to be efficient on both avenues.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like wasting time. I come to practice, well, since I'm the IGL, the in-game leader, I kind of have to lead my practices anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I come prepared, or try to be prepared like an hour before, so I know what to talk about with my team. But you have to, especially if you're a new team, everyone should be contributing the same. So everyone should be giving like 100% effort. So that time that you have together,
Yeah.
that 3-4 hours, usually for us it's like around 4 hours of practice.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be as efficient as possible. You don't want to make any missteps. You don't want any false steps either. You want to make sure that everything you're doing is taking a step forward. You're always moving 1% better.
That's a good point that you made up about the key word that I like is the efficiency of practice. I think like I've talked to multiple collegiate teams and just asking how they practice, and you seem like you have a lot like an actual structure to your practices, and then especially you being like very efficient in your practices. I think most people just think practice is just scrim, and nothing else in between of that, and then they expect to get results like that. So I that's a good point that you made, that you have to be efficient in your practice. Then VAR review is another good thing that you said. I people always hammer VAR review, and it's just like anything else, like you take from basketball, football, softball, any of those traditional sports, you have to look back at your mistakes, what happened in games, what happened in practice. And someone that played collegiate football, that's something that I did on a daily after practice. I'm in the film room looking at what I did wrong at practice, what we could do. I let the coaches know, like, hey, I think we should do this to counter this, and it goes on. So it's VAR review is very important. I think people neglect that in collegiate esports, is that people do not go back and watch their practices. Hell, not even their games sometimes. Some people just like, oh, we got beat. All right, okay, next practice on Monday. So it's like that. So it's kind of is. I find it very. If you're gonna do that, I feel like you shouldn't even scrim at that point. I feel like you should probably just play the game.
So some people just don't know any better. Like most people who play esports in general, so most of them don't have any background in traditional sports anyway. So it's hard to tell. Like, it's also hard to say because they haven't had a coach. They don't know what it's like to look over film in traditional sports. They don't know what to look for. So it's in your best interest to, like, YouTube is gonna be your best friend for any esport. Like, they have live coaching all the time. Like, for example, I know for Valorant you have free coaching like every day basically.
Yeah.
Some coaches do it on Twitch. Like, it's in your best interest, especially.
Yeah. Dive into that though. You're like what you're saying that a lot of people haven't played traditional sports, and so and with us playing, we kind of especially me. I know I see it all the time. We see it all the time, and it's just like, wow, man. Like, and you know what? That could contribute to why some people are just not as competitive in esports like you would think they are. Because parents like ours, they typically don't look at they look at esports as like, oh, it's just a hobby. This is just a thing. But I don't think I like for instance, I showed my parents like the CS:GO majors, stuff like that, and showed them the crowd and the chants and all that stuff going on, and they're just sitting there like, what? A lot of people there just to see people play video games? I'm just like, you don't understand. It's just as competitive as football, basketball. It's just not as mainstream as not right now. It's getting there, but it's not up there as like NFL or NBA or your college football or anything like that. So you're definitely right on that. I do notice a trend in people who are in esports that never touch football, basketball, baseball, anything like that in their life. So I do notice that. So what do you have you worked with anybody that's like that?
Oh yeah, like all the time. Like all the time I would do it. So like it's especially prevalent in collegiate because they see posters on their campus and like, oh cool, my college has a Valorant team. I'll try out. I'll try out for fun. And like it's a bigger plus if they're offering scholarships. Like, what? I don't have to pay for, or like I'll have a scholarship just for playing Valorant. Like, why would I not do it? But like that's the problem with what collegiate scene, right? Because you have a pool of students that may or may not be competitive, right? They're not really there to play Valorant. That's not what you're doing. It's not an organization like Cloud9 or EG that you're paid to play the game at the highest level. Like, that's not really what's going on. So that's like the problem you see with collegiate. You don't see it often with free agent rosters. And the reason why I think it's like that is because if you join the free agent roster to begin with, it's because you're looking for competitive players, right? You're trying to make a name for yourself without an organization. You're trying to get to that level.
Yeah.
For collegiate, it's not really the same. So I do see like a good handful of those players, and I do think it's because they're not in the same boat, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like different goals.
That makes sense. Makes completely sense. So I want to go back into like the practice side of everything. So like I was gonna ask you, what specific aspects of the game do you focus on doing practice sections, and how does this contribute to you, like your overall gameplay as like an IGL and as a flex player and everything like that?
So for me personally, I don't like to. I have to micro most of my teammates, but I try not to. I have a philosophy in the game where the IGL should be to be, how do I explain this? The IGL should only have to macro, and the micro aspect of the game should be decided by your players, right? Because if the IGL is going to be telling you how to play the macro game, which is the larger part of the game, then that inner circle of the game should be determined by your players. You shouldn't have to control your players as pieces of a chessboard, right? Because then they won't be able to play the game by themselves. They're going to always have to have that someone else telling them what to do, and I don't think that's the right way to play. I think that every player should have a mind of their own and should be able to make decisions on what they learn in practice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, like, when I go into practice, I try and VOD review as much as I can. That hour before that we talked about was
Yeah.
it should be used for to watch VODs on YouTube, whether it's like professional VOD or our VOD,
Mm-hmm.
and try to find weaknesses that are mainstream, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, my team, I shouldn't say it, but my team on Vine has a really tough time on defense.
Yeah.
Right? So I have to find avenues, different ways to fix it. Whether it's to take more map control here, or to back up here, or to play for stall, whatever I have to do. Like, that's my job as the IGL, is to make a macro concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure everyone's on the same page as me.
So basically, when you mean by micro and macro, like you said, is like the biggest portion. For instance, like calling a play or adjusting to what the other enemy team is doing, and I guess so forth like that. Then the micro would be like, I guess, like playing certain positions or asking for a certain utility or play this like this so they can do this, So
Right.
yeah, so it's so for you as an IGL, have you ever been on a team where you had to do both and worry about your job at the same time?
Absolutely. It's like, it's really hard to do, but you're gonna have to do it, because most players won't understand that concept yet, right? Because like, I was fortunate enough to be on teams where I had great coaching, so everything I learned was through those coaches. Thank God. Shout out Coach Xander, that's my guy. But everything I learned was through my coaches and through trial and error. Like, I've been playing the game since beta, so like you just see a lot of stuff. If you watch pro games, you'll learn a lot too. So you have to get after it. You have to figure it out on your own sometimes, and you're gonna have to do both. You're gonna have to micro and macro. It's gonna be harder for you, but like I said, you want to make sure you're efficient at those practices. You want to make sure everyone's on the same page as you, so you don't have to do both during game time.
So for instance, let's say, far as like with so if you had to tell a player, if a player actually like, hey, how do I develop my IQ where so my IGL doesn't have to micromanage me the entire game, what would be your answer to that?
IGL on your own. Go into not a custom game. Go into a ranked game and just go IGL, or watch more pro games, or play the game more. If you're playing 20 hours a week, play 40. The more you play the game, your game IQ will go up. Like, there's nowhere else to go but up.
I agree with that, because I noticed, especially playing in mortal lobbies and everything like that, you kind of like see things that that you probably never even seen before. Because I've known I've heard pro players say, "Oh, I didn't know this existed," and they play the game 20, 40 hours a week, more, and they're just like, wait, I didn't know that existed. I didn't know you can do this, So it's, I guess, like you said, playing the game, you even pro players are constantly still learning, And so one of the things that that I was thinking about the other day is, with the game direction and how it's going, there's really not. You can disagree with me on this, but do you? I really think that there's not. I guess since the game hasn't been out long enough, there's not a proper way to play Valorant. Like it is like in CS, like everyone knows. Smokeline knows how you're supposed to do this, how you do this on this map. Even though like maps like Ascent that's been out since beta, it pretty much it's one solidified meta on that map, and if you do not run that meta, you pretty much lose. And so so with the game, going on 3 years now, do you think that is on this way to like being developed as like this is how you properly play this game, or is it still in development?
I think those beginning years of Valorant, like the first 2 years, that meta has defined itself, right? And there will always be a meta, but you can always play against the meta, right? Because teams like Paper X, they always run against the meta.
They do.
And the reason why it works all the time, or not, I wouldn't say all the time. The reason why it works some of the time is because pro teams, even at that level, they're not expecting a composition like Paper X's, right? Because they're stacking against a meta comp, and what they're doing is just anti-stratting the meta comp. So you can play the game however you want. I think within the coming years, I think that the meta will shift. I don't think there will be a meta eventually.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be like years from now. But in games like CS, where you don't have a character dedicated to smoking
Mm-hmm.
or a character dedicating to locking down a site, everyone kind of knows that job, and you assign that role to an individual person in CS:GO. But in Valorant, it's like, oh, okay, this is my smokes player. He needs to be good at every smokes possible.
Mm-hmm.
This is my duelist. He should know how to entry. And CS:GO, I think it's more like, oh, everyone knows how to do it, so that way the game flows easier. You know?
Mm-hmm. So comparing I guess like comparing the like CS and Valorant, which one would you say? Because this has always been a debate. Which game is harder, CS or Valorant? I gotta know.
Mechanically, the CS game is by far harder than Valorant.
Mm-hmm. Mechanically, okay.
Now, macro-wise, like talking about utility usage, variables, like the ways to play the map, Valorant by far sweeps CS:GO, and it's not even close. The only thing CS:GO has on Valorant is skins and mechanics. That's all they have.
Skins.
Everything else, Valorant clears CS:GO, and it's not even close.
Some people
account for so much more.
Some people would disagree, man. They would say, "Oh man, CS is just 10 times better." And the argument I hear is because of, well, for one, people do not like the E-daters. For one, people do not like that. And two,
are we talking about the community or are we talking about pro play? I'm talking about pro play.
Well, I'll just bring up the community side of that. The pro play side also is that people talk about, I guess, because everyone can do the same thing. So it's just like, it's easier to just be able to do the same thing over and over and over again. Versus like, for instance, this person smokes. You have to have, like you said, a dedicated smoke player, a dedicated, duelist player that could, entry. It's just all these things. And so I think Valorant kind of, like with this, like what you're saying, being much of a more team based game, I guess you should say, because of the utility usage. Do you think it kind of like strays people away from wanting to play it and giving it a chance, and they rather just stick with CS because they think it's just easier?
It depends on your argument now, right? Because I think that what makes a game good is like the layers it has of competitiveness, or like at least how difficult the game can be. Right?
Okay.
I don't like playing easy games, right? I'm sure CS2 coming in now, I'm sure like at the pro level is a difficult game. I'm sure of it. But I'm also sure that it's not as difficult as Valorant because you have to count for so much more. There's so much more you have to think about compared to CS2. That's what I'm arguing. Not that the Valorant's a better game. That's not what I'm arguing. I'm arguing which the better game in my book is what is the most difficult. What is the most intriguing game? Which one requires the most skill?
Okay.
Right? Mentally and mechanically, which one requires the most skill? I think it's Valorant by far.
Okay, that's a beautiful argument. I can't lie. That's the way you put it. That's a good argument. That is a really good argument. I would have to bring some CS fanboy here, and I want to hear y'all debate on that because
I played CS since I was like 11, and I know like I haven't played the game at that level, but I had like 3,000 hours on the game, so I know a good chunk. But definitely, like, Valorant's the best game.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. So since you played competitive games all your life and everything, so how would you describe like how competitive you are towards just things, like just anything, just being a competitor?
You can ask my teammates that right now. It's to the point where I don't want to. It's to the point where I'm so competitive that not any mistake, but major mistakes that could cost me a tournament or a LAN, you'll know that it pissed me off. You'll know. Like, I'll tell you, like, I'm a very blunt teammate. I like telling you what you did wrong because I feel like even in old school traditional sports, those coaches always flourished more, right? Like,
that's true.
You tell me about Nick Saban, right?
He getting your butt. That man does not play.
But he doesn't play, that's like where I'm at too with with esports. Like, yes, it's kind of funny that like you play a sport on your computer, sure,
Mm-hmm.
but the level of competitiveness doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can definitely be successful playing this game. You've seen it already in pro.
Yeah.
But like, if you're not gonna try your best, right, or if you're not dedicated to put in that time, like I am, I don't want you as my teammate. You know, so you'll know,
Mm-hmm.
like, if you make a mistake that I've already talked about, or like we sat in practice and we talked about, hey, look, like this is the game plan.
Mm-hmm.
Stick to the game plan. Do not stray away from it. Do not play your own game. And what I mean by your own game is like I said, like as the IGL, your job is to make sure that they understand the macro concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the
What you trying
micro
to
is
do?
on them,
Yeah.
right? But it comes to a point where um, the micro should be uniform for some aspects. Like, for example, in a 5v4 situation, when you're up with a man, you're not supposed to look for an engagement because you're already up numbers.
Yeah.
At that point, you play your trades and you win the round, right?
Mm-hmm. We don't
So
see that
it's
in
things
rank.
like that. You don't see that in ranked, obviously, because no one really cares in ranked.
Yeah.
Because that's the more fun lobbies, right?
Yeah.
But in collegiate, I expect a different level of play from you. I don't expect a ranked play, you know?
So with that, let's say for instance, let's say you're playing on a team, you have a Moto 3 player, and then let's say you have a Gold player. What would be like your expectations on those two players then, as like as a competitor? Like what would you expect out of those two? Like I guess like rank wise, since people care about ranked.
What can you expect? You know, it's gonna be night and day. The level of play, right? Because like even if you never coached, or if you never got coaching and you hit Immortal 3, you learn from ranked experience what you should and shouldn't do. If you're gold, you have maybe like 10% of what that Immortal 3 player has in experience alone. So you're definitely more prone to making mistakes like that. So Gold 3 and Immortal 3, they're not comparable. They're not.
So I know you hit Radiant. You hit it twice, Radiant player.
Yeah.
As man's different. Man's different, guys. But I was gonna ask you, you know, with you being, you know, hitting Radiant and, you know, accomplishing that and everything, what would you say that separates like Radiance from, let's say, like Moto 3 players or and below?
Hard to say, because at least for me, you can play a good game, you can have a good game and still lose. So I don't think it's hard to say, because I don't know like what the rank situation is, because I try to like not play as much ranked, and I tend to put most of my time in focusing on a practice schedule. But for me personally, ranked is not the best way to determine how good you are. Or like between Immortal 3 and Radiant, that threshold is large, but not to where the degree you think, right? Because I think top 100 Radiants are in a league of their own, and I think everything before that, like from 200 to 500 Radiants, or 500 to 200 Radiants, they're in a different league of their own.
Okay.
So to win games like that and to be above 800, 900, 1000 RR is not easy. But the threshold for being Radiant is 450. Right? So like, to me, if you're in Immortal 3 and you're around like 300 RR, 400 RR, then like you can I wouldn't say consider yourself a Radiant, but like consider yourself a decent enough player. Right? And I think if you're under that threshold, like if you're Immortal 3 and you're under 300 RR or under 400 RR, then you know you could use some work still. But like I've seen there's a ton of cases where Immortal 3 players I've seen that are way more consistent than Radiant players. And like that's just the state of the game. Is like you might get one person that doesn't want to play the game because like you told them they did something wrong and they didn't like it, right? It hurt their ego. So like that's the problem with ranked, is like you can't really control it. What you can control is your team environment, right?
Yeah.
Depending on if you're playing for a school or for agent roster. So.
So with that, comparing like the, I guess like with your school and everything. So like, how did you like, I guess like, channel your competitive spirit into dynamics to like support your team and like achieve like goals as a team and everything.
During practice, when I like I said, I was a very blunt teammate,
Mm-hmm.
or am a very blunt teammate. So during practice, I think is the best time to tell them what they're doing wrong. But during official and game time, whatever mistakes you make, you don't talk about the mistake yet,
Mm-hmm.
unless like it's very like it was very crucial. Then you talk about take a timeout, like, hey, look, we need to fix this, or that.
Mm-hmm.
Then you keep it moving. But in practice, like you're able to take a timeout, you're able to pause the game. You're like, hey, look, we need to fix this because if you keep doing this, there won't be officials for us, right?
Yeah.
So during practice is where like we hit hard. Like it's almost to the point where it's like a chore to practice.
Yeah.
But I feel like if your practices don't feel like a chore and it feels fun to practice, then I don't think you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
not to where like it's it should still be fun to you, but it shouldn't like you should be it should be fun competing. Not fun in the aspect like, oh, I'm getting aces every 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Like, this is fun. Like I'm beating bad teams. No. It should be there's an article on flow state, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in flow state there's a level of difficulty and time.
Mm-hmm.
And the level of difficulty can't be too high to where you're disengaged with what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it can't be too easy to feel like a breeze, right? So you need to find that middle ground of difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be engaged all the time.
Oh,
You feel me? So some games you should play against opponents that are better than you. So obviously you're learning more. But you shouldn't be getting absolutely destroyed in the game to where like, okay, you're hopeless. And you shouldn't be playing against teams that are too low level for you. So that's too easy and it gets in your head. Right? So there's a middle ground there that you need to push through, and you need to find that during practice.
And that's the thing. I noticed, especially like I've noticed from some certain collegiate teams, they don't talk about the mistakes in practice at all. Like they're just like, oh, they just brush it over, and then I'm IGL, and I do and the thing is, I get on my teams, but during practice because I'm just like, what you do at practice will roll over in the game. And I think people don't understand that is so important, that what you do at practice, it will happen in the game. And hell, you can find yourself in that same scenario that you find yourself at practice, and because you didn't take it serious or try to fix the mistake or go back and look at it, you find yourself in that same scenario in the game, and you don't know what to do, and you make the same mistake that you could have fixed during practice. So I think people don't take practice as serious as they should. Practice like I said, practice should be as competitors in anything that you do. If you're competing, you should take it just as serious as the actual game or actual tournament or the actual even you want to say job for the actual getting a promotion or whatever. Because even in job related stuff, you're going against maybe 5-10 different other people that want that same promotion as you, and then what separates you from them? Is your work ethic hard? Are you busting your butt? What separates you? So that's I think people really genuinely don't understand that, man, and that's why I noticed that it was one video I seen Deion Sanders was talking about at Colorado. He was saying that the issue with today's generation when it comes to people competing, even he's dealing with it with athletes that play college football. You see in college football, he talked about how people just show up to practice because it's mandatory. They don't show up to practice to actually practice of what they need to work on to improve, to prepare them for Saturday. And he was like, people just practice to practice. He said when Coach Sanders said when he practiced to be the greatest I ever was. You don't hear people say, when people ask you, because he asks, what is your purpose of practicing? And I think people don't practice with a purpose. And that's where he was going for it. People do not practice with a purpose. So it's just like, if you don't have a purpose for practice, why are you even practicing?
I agree with them. There's a lot of people that think it's cringe to want to be the best. Like, oh, I'm practicing to be the best Valorant player.
Yeah.
In this community, especially, I think that's where there's a disconnect because some people are more gifted than others, right?
Yeah.
But I'm sure Deion Sanders has said it himself, hard work beats talent every day of the week.
Every day of the week.
So he also said that practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanence.
Yes.
And what he means by
Yes.
that is like the more you practice, the more you drill through what you're doing, the more you figure out what you're doing wrong, and the more you fix the things you're doing wrong, you create a sense of permanence. Like I know what I did wrong, and every time I'm in that situation, I know every avenue, every variable possible, so where I know I'll win in the end. But if you're gifted, you know, some people think like, oh, my aim will carry me, my mechanics will carry me, and they get to Radiant, and then they can't get picked up on a team, and they don't know why.
That's
Because
it.
they swing in 4v1 situations, they swing in 4v2 situations, they just throw the game.
Yeah. Because they're thinking, because I mean, dude, we see it in ranked all the time. Especially we see the Eagle Jets. You know, they just want to swing everything and then blame the team for not helping them. And he's just like, bro, you just gave them the one. They picked up the gun on Eco. Now the fucking Reina just clapped all of us. And it's just like, what do you want us to do?
Yeah.
What do you want us to do?
Yeah.
So
that's how it is.
So yeah, I agree with that, man. Cause the thing is, like, you can never be perfect. No one's ever perfect. So you trying to be perfect and perfection would drive you crazy. Cause that's it was. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's the artist gosh, I can't think of his name. They compared him to Michael Jackson all the time. Prince, the artist Prince. They said that he used to, like, if you looked at the back of his like mansion, he had like balled up sheets of like written songs that he had written that he didn't like because it wasn't perfect. And he talked about how he wanted to be a perfectionist. And I think trying to be a perfectionist, because it's literally impossible, it would drive you crazy. It's literally insane to try to be perfect. But you trying to improve is a better way of going about it, in my opinion, than trying to be a perfectionist or something.
I agree.
So
I agree.
Yeah. Going back to like the competitive side too. I want to ask you now. This is specifically about like moments about you. You know, like what is something that in the game or something that you can think of where like you kind of like, I guess in a sense, you kind of like excelled, like you broke that barrier to where it was like where you was like at like right here, but you finally broke it to go up here, in a sense. Like, what can you think of a time for us that kind of like where you finally figured it out and it like excelled your game even further?
Where it clicked?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, again with my coaches, I always wanted to know how they knew so much about the game, right? Because that's when I was still learning the game. I wanted to know how they learned, and obviously like they had their own coaches and they learned from someone else, like they had their own mentors. So I took what I learned with my coaches, and I remember my coach telling me, he's like, look, bro, if you wanna IGL, like you can use like what I gave you as a baseline, but you need to with over time you'll learn how to do it on your own. And like that just never made sense to me. Like I just wanted him to like give me the cheat sheets to do it, you know?
Yeah.
But then like I realized over time, like ever since then I started like doing it on my own. I just did what he did and just started watching VODs over. And like it became like it got to the point where for a short amount of time I thought I would never be good at creating like a strat book or a playbook for my team. But the more I watched, the more I understood the game and the reasons behind why pros did what they did to begin with. That's when it started clicking for me, and I was like, wait, like I don't have to use this agent to complete this task all the time. I can do it a different way, like if I throw a smoke here instead of a stun, like little things like that. And that's where things clicked for me, and it gave me like a different look at the game. Like there's not one way to play the game, right? So I was able to make a playbook that was like similar, that did similar things, but with different utility to help me exceed at what I wanted to do, right? So for basically for me as an IGL, like I thought IGLing was always like a cool thing to do. Like that guy knows what he's doing. Like this guy can lead a team and aim and shoot back. Like this guy's amazing. So I wanted to be that, but you know, because it's a good thing to have it's like a confidence booster, right? Because like, oh, I'm not just the player, I'm like the leader as well. So it's like great. So like, I always wanted to achieve that.
I hate IGL. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm gonna be honest with you. That's good for you, but it's I always have to. I have to look at it like this, especially playing football. Being a linebacker, you're pretty much IGL because you got to know what the defensive backs are doing. You got to know what the corners are doing. You got to know what the D line are doing. You got to know what your outside linebacker is doing. You got to know what you're doing. So it's like you got to know what everyone's doing, and then you got to make adjustments on the fly. So for instance, like if let's say they're in the spread, is 2x2 with the they're in the shotgun with the halfback to the running back, like to the right side. So you can technically consider that a three, like a heavy, like a 3-set receiver side, because you can count them. Yeah, you can count his trips because you can count the running back as like basically trips. Yeah, like as a little receiver. So because he can the ball, he can go out wide, he can flare out and all that stuff. So but
there's a lot of aspects. I think.
Yeah. So it's like that, and so as a linebacker, you gotta call the adjustments. You have to make the triple checks. You gotta make, you got the banjo. You gotta cloud. You gotta do all that type of stuff where you have to communicate with the corners to pick up the flats, and they go deep. It's just stuff like that you have to think of. That is so much going on that it's just like. Because to be honest, I know this is going away from it a little bit, but I think I've always told you, like, everything that I've done, I've always been in a leadership role, even if I didn't want to. For some reason, God has always put me in a leadership role, and I really don't know why. And it's like, I remember you kept telling me. I remember actually when you was coaching for Auburn, you had me as the IGL, and so started off. So it's just funny how I've always tried to run away from stuff like that, and it's like somehow it's like. God is like, nah, you gonna have to accept it now. I put you in a situation where you have no other choice. You gotta do it. So, and that's what it always feels like. And thinking about it, going, just looking at my family, my mom is in a leadership position. My he's a sergeant. My auntie, she's like the head nurse. My uncle is like the head engineering person over at his company. My other uncle is he has his own business, own construction company. So it's just like I just noticed like people in my family have always been in leadership positions, and me and my brother has always been in leadership positions, whether we didn't want to or not. And so I just always find that curious of like, do you people being in certain positions even if they don't want to, but they're just good at what they do. And I'm not saying I'm the best. Because I know I'm not. I still have a lot to learn. Because I mean, even I learned from you. I even come to you with questions and ask for help and stuff like that. So, to go on that though, do you think people are like born leaders, born to be in those positions, or do you think people can learn and you can kind of like slot them in those positions?
There's definitely people that are born with it, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think I was born with it because even in sports, I didn't have that captain role, mm-hmm. and I always like looked from a distance to see like how they managed to be the captain and a player. Like there's a lot of responsibility with that. But when I was playing in sports and I saw my captains, like my captains weren't doing anything special. In fact, like they weren't even doing their job at all. If anything, they were being bad role models, right? Mm. So like I'm here sitting and watching that. I'm like, bro, like you don't even care. You got such a high title. Like that's something you should honor, right?
Yeah.
So. Like ever since that day that I saw my captains like horse around and not doing what they're supposed to, mm-hmm. I was like, dude, I could do a way better job than you, and like that's kind of where like I was at too with Valorant. Mm-hmm. I had like I was kind of too scared to IGL, right?
Same.
And
yeah,
no, I understand, I get it, because it's like okay, these 4 players are depending on me to like win the round, you know? But you know what? And I was like, I was. That's when we talked about the clicking part, right? Because mm-hmm. like when I went out and I did my research and I was like, okay, just have a plan. As long as you have a plan and you sound confident in your plan, your teammates would be like, okay, he sounds like he knows what he's doing, so And like when it works, they're like they gave you respect. They're like, oh shit, it worked. The plan worked. So like let's listen to this guy. That's kind of like what an IGL is. You have to like mm-hmm. assert. You have to earn your respect, right? Earn your stripes so that your team believes more in you. Mm-hmm. And I think once your team is 100%, like they can go into the game blindfolded and still win, man, that's when you win. That's when you won your team over at that point. You just have to have a plan.
That's a for you IGLs out there. Hey, this is one of the best IGLs talking to you right now.
No,
like,
it's not.
It's one of the
not.
best. He is.
No,
I will say, he is like the boaster of collegiate Valorant right now.
No, it's not.
He's the boaster of collegiate Valorant. I'm going to say that. I don't care what y'all say. He's the boaster of collegiate Valorant. Man's smart. I have played with him. I have scrimmed with him. I have played against him. And the stuff that he has done to me and my team. This man has dropped 40 on us in the scrim. I just like I'm just saying. Dude is crazy. Dude is crazy. So take what he's saying, guys, and like listen to it, because he's really he's a great IGL. He's a really good IGL. Even though he's still learning just like the rest of us, but dude is nuts. And I feel like once he get the people behind him, like behind you, I think you're just gonna like just skyrocket, man. You know,
that's just true with any team. You just gotta trust your teammates, man.
Yeah, most definitely on that. So let me ask you this. Because we're gonna wrap this up a little. We're about to wrap this up a little bit. But I want to go into like, want people to get to know, I guess like the other side of you, where you watch VODs all day, you watch pro players. So which one you would say you kind of like compare your game to, in a sense?
I don't try to model anyone. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people. They look like towards like tens, and they try to have like snappy aim. Or they look towards Demon 1 and they try to copy him. I don't like. I think it's good to watch these players and know their play styles. So you like when you come across it, it's like, oh, like okay, this guy has like a FNS type call, or this guy has like a Boaster type call, or this guy's an Angel type call. Like, I think it's important to know your game. But I don't think you're supposed to copy someone's gameplay, right?
Okay.
I don't think that's the right thing to do. Because especially if they're mainstream, like let's say you try to copy Tense's gameplay, like sure, like he's hard to play against because his aim is mechanically gifted. But that's just the thing, right? He's mechanically gifted. Like the odds of you being just as equally gifted as Tense, plus he's had the experience and background in CS:GO. I don't think it's the right thing to do is try to copy him. But like, I think you should play what's comfortable to you.
Okay.
If you think like a slow methodical gameplay is your style, then you should play like that. If you think that a fast, hard execute team, like for example, DRX has some nice hard hits, you should be like DRX. Like like it just depends. It just depends on your play style.
So
I don't think that you should copy anyone.
So with that, how would you say? So if someone were to say, well, how do I find my play style? What would you tell them?
Just look what feels comfortable, what feels right to you. You should play every type of play style, especially if you're new to the game.
Yeah.
Try playing. First of all, you should be playing every role. But after you play every role, then you go back and look, which one did I enjoy the most? Did I enjoy dashing as Jet? Did I enjoy locking down sites as KJ? Like, what gave me that high that I want to have all the time? Like, which play style was it? Was it smoking for my team? Was it getting 13 assists, or was it playing Jet and getting that entry? Like, what felt the best to you?
I definitely.
That's how I did it.
I can definitely say when I first started playing Valorant, I'm pretty sure everyone probably did this. I just instant duelist the entire time, and
I did the same thing.
Yeah, and I kept saying, I was just like, man, I'm a duelist. I think if you remember when we first met, all I played was duelist. I was just like, I'm playing duelist, and then when I got to Auburn, they needed an Astra player. The funny story is, I actually never even played Astra in my life, and the Navy team said they needed a Smokes player. So I lied and said, yeah, I play Smokes. Never even touched Smokes. I promise you, never even touched Smokes. Just because I wanted to build a team so bad. And I started like watching every Smokes YouTube, how to play Smokes, try to figure it out. And I was just basically a Astra Jet, basically. I would go in before my team. I would smoke, go in, be aggressive as hell. So, and I think to be honest, I think when you started coaching me, actually, I think that's when I started to find my play style and how I like to play, because I'm not really I'm an aggressive player, but I'm not really a person that likes to go in fast and flick and do all this crazy stuff and like tens or CNET, all of them. I like being a rat. That's just how I am. I like, especially I really found that out once the chamber meta shifted out of the way, and KJ starting to come back into the meta, I started to really be like, yo, I like Sentinel Row. Sentinel Row is nice, and the thing is, like, I think one of my biggest things that you helped me out with was being able to read a defense. Like, I've always been good at that, and that's something I did good at football, was reading the offense very well. And so I think that helped me out where I even noticed sometimes when we play against good teams how I'm able to just like see certain things and see certain patterns, I guess, and pretty much be like, okay, they're doing this. If they do, if I see 3 people here, they're probably in a 3-1-1, or they have like a fast rotator so that it can stay to the strong side, something like that. And so I will say you helped me with that a lot, because I was just brain dead chamber when I op headhunter, just want to shoot. You know what I mean? Like it was. We already know how bad that chamber minute was, and so I think when he got shifted out, I think a lot of people had to go back to playing Team Valorant, and that messed up a lot of people. And so I know it messed me up, because I was just like, man, I don't know what agent to play, because I don't know what role. I just play chamber, and going back to learning, actually going back to the basics and going back to the roots of the game helped me understand my playstyle. And so I wouldn't say I know you say you don't compare yourself to players, which I ain't gonna lie, I have a bad habit of doing it, because I'm just like, well, if he's doing it, why can't I do it? But but it's
not.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's not like a bad thing to compare yourself to a pro. That's not a bad thing. I just don't think you should start off the game like that.
And I agree. I definitely agree, because once I started with football, once I started developing like the understanding of football, I went towards the Hall of Famers and learned from them and what they did. Like Ray Lewis and Michael Singletary were my 2 biggest like people I watched, like what they did, why they moved this certain way, why they called this check on this formation. Just anything like that. I wanted to understand. People that don't know Michael Singletary, he played for the Chicago Bulls. I'm sorry, I said Chicago Bears. Back in like he was on that that Super Bowl defense team that back in the day, and they were like crazy. But yeah, like I guess you're right. Once you start to understand, I guess like the levels of the game, like a higher level of the game, then you can start looking towards like I guess players that play your role and kind of like learn from them, see how they, play in certain situations. Or like for me, I look at like Nats and Net for like setups with Cypher and KJ, and occasionally Chamber, occasionally, even though we know Chamber is not that great, but just to learn like just certain like what certain setups to do if they're hard hitting on ascent, certain setups to for chokes, or like if Jet keeps updrafting on top of Jin, what can we do to counter it, stuff like that. So I think once you develop that high sense of the game, then you can start looking towards like those type players.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one more question I had to ask. So what drove you to play, like to want to play at the highest level at Valorant?
I'm competitive, man. I've been playing games since I was a kid, so why would I stop now? Like I've been playing forever. I'm getting my college paid for to play video games, so why not go a little bit higher than that? Like, of course, I'm going to school. I'm doing a major in nursing. Like I have a backup plan, but that doesn't stop me from doing what I like. So if an opportunity shows itself, like, hey, you're doing pretty good at this, you want to come do this for Valorant, or you want to come play for this team or something like that, and if it's worth it, why wouldn't I do it? That's like my childhood dream, was to obviously play at that level, and I thought it wasn't achievable, but the longer I kept sticking with it, and the more that it was closer to reach, the more I realized like it's very feasible to achieve, so that's why I haven't stopped, so I've been going at it.
So are you still, let's say, what would it look like after college? Are you still looking to still try to go after it, or is that just too far to think of right now?
College is like that's like what I have. I still have like 2 years, like I have 2 to 3 years of college left, so I mean that's like that's my time limit. If I don't get anything by then that's it. I'm going to join the workforce. But if I do, then that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
So okay, this is actually the last question because I would love to end this off like this. So for you, especially playing on some of those big teams, or not big teams, but some of those teams, free agent teams that you play for and everything like that. What advice would you give to an aspiring competitive player that's looking to improve and want to compete on the highest level?
Play the game, man. It sounds so cliche, but you gotta play the game. Please play the game.
Play the game.
I have a lot of teammates that joined the team, and they're getting paid scholarship money to go to school for Valorant, but doesn't mean that they know what they're doing necessarily, right? That doesn't mean that they have that drive. If you have that drive, even my coaches will tell you, the first step you have to do is hit Radiant.
Yep.
For as hard as it is, you have to hit Radiant first. After you hit Radiant, that's your resume to join a team, a free agent roster, preferably with other Radiants. That's step 2. Step 3, play in nights, play in GLGs, play those tournaments, make a Twitter, get your name out there. That's kind of that's the only way as of right now, besides Premier, which apparently is the path to pro. But even for Premier, even to get picked up on a team, you gotta have those first 2 steps, right?
Yeah.
So you gotta play. You gotta play the game.
All right, y'all hear it first then. So play the game, hit Radiant, improve, VOD review. We brought you so many things that you need to know. It's simple.
There's no secret.
It's no secret to it. It's simple, but you have to be willing to put in the work, and that's one of the things that Ant is a big believer in. Yes, someone could give you the blueprint. It's just like building a house. You can't build a house. You can have the blueprints, you can have all of the tools and everything to it, but if you don't start building it, then it's just a bunch of land just sitting there. It's so you gotta put in that work to get it started. Now I think, in my opinion, okay, let me ask you this. I know this because now it just dawned on me. Do you think it's harder to start than it is to be consistent?
It's way harder to be consistent, without a doubt. I can play one game of casual on Valorant, and that's considered starting.
Yeah.
But do I play that every day? Do I watch VODs every day? Sometimes I set my computer, I'm like, do I really want to watch this VOD? And then I remember, yeah, I do want to watch this VOD, so I have to watch it,
Hey, guys, you hear it here. Sorry for the asking more questions. It just dawned on me, though. I was just like, man, that's actually, some people think it's vice versa, though, so
now it's different. Now it depends on what you're talking about.
Because I think motivation plays a part of why starting can be easier, but when you lose that lack of motivation, the consistency kind of lags.
Then I know some people have a hard time starting the gym. Getting into the gym is the hardest part, and then staying consistent after is also really hard. So it's a different thing, bro.
Yeah.
It really depends on person to person how I think about it. But for me, it's definitely staying consistent is the hardest part.
Thank you. Good said. So thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. We got some great stuff said in this podcast, so I appreciate you all for watching. And thank you again for coming and taking time out of your day to do this. My best friend, my coach, / teammate, So appreciate you guys. Y'all take care. Bye.